Welcome to this first look at a brand new racing game for the Sega Dreamcast console, which is called Arcade Racing Legends. Now, what I've got here is a beta version of the game, so I do stress that it's not the final product, and this has been loaned to me by JoshProd, the guys responsible for creating a whole menagerie of retro Dreamcast games, releasing them for the system over the past couple of years. They've made quite a name for themselves in the games they've released. This is actually the second time they're releasing a 3D racing game. We've had 4x4 Jam before this point, which was a port of a PSP game in actual fact, which is quite a brave move really. It's the first time we saw anything like that sort of post-death of the Dreamcast. This time they've created a bespoke racing game for the system, which aims to capture some of the best bits of sort of the Sega racing games of the past. So you've got hints of Daytona in here, a bit of Sega Rally, you've got even sort of shades of virtual racing here, which I'll sort of show you on one of the tracks. Now, just going into sort of the menu system here, I've just clicked on the career mode. Now this shows you, sort of the challenges you've got, which are called days, and they take place across the different tracks of the game, and then they give you different challenges that you've got to try and achieve. As you can see here, we've got Arctic, Beach, City Night, Desert, Forest and Submarine levels. I can only really show you a set amount here. I'm not really allowed to give away too much, so I'm going to jump into City Night on 3 laps and just show you, just doing a sort of a quick trial run, sort of like a time trial. Now, as you can see, as we get straight into the game here, it's actually very well animated. It's done to a very decent standard. This it's quick, very sprightly. The team are aiming for 60 frames per second with this game, so keeping a consistent performance, which isn't often found with Dreamcast racing games. Now, if you've played any that came out around the time, sort of 99, 2000, 2001, they drop in frames. They're often around 30 frames and can drop even to sort of 20 frames. In the case of some multiplayer ones, they can drop even down to about 15 frames per second. Exhibition of speed, I'm looking at you. Now, a lot of the details are in place here. As you can see, that you've got the barriers with the logos on. You've got a nice Sega and Dreamcast logo on the left there. Not sure whether they will be left in because you've got Sonic there as well, so I don't really know how the guys are sitting with the trademarks on this. I would hope they do leave them there because it's a really cool feature and it kind of gives off like sort of a big screen vibe. What would have been cool there is if they can't have those in there, is perhaps advertising some of their previous games on the billboards. That would be really cool. Advertising in the game itself. So you see quite far into the distance here. I think there's not a lot of sort of fogging going on, and you can see that the Dreamcast's usual rendering technique there, where it sort of is rendering just enough in front here, and the details are coming into view. That's often found with Dreamcast racing games, so it's no different here. I think the team are adding in things like sort of brake lights and perhaps some track and environmental detail at a later date. I certainly know that the builds I've seen after this, they are a little more polished than perhaps this one here, but everything is coming up nicely. Now, I played a beta of this back when it was first announced on Kickstarter, to which I had a very successful Kickstarter run, and at first it played very roughly. I thought, well, I hope we're going to sort of have a decent legacy 3D racing game here. But this build here, which is months and months down the line, is a lot better, and it's just going from strength to strength. It's out in July, we're now in May, and it's shaping up really nicely. I think just with a little more brushing up, and you've got what makes a fantastic racing game here. And the performance is good, the graphics are very presentable, and the environments are very pleasing. The levels are just different enough as well to want you to keep sort of coming back and experiencing everything that the game's got to offer. Unlike some other racing games on the Dreamcast, where you are racing just particular parts of circuits and stuff like that, and it can get a bit samey after a while. This one here is it's going for radically different levels each time. Naturally, you've got sort of your snowy scenario one, one. You've got your underwater level, your forest level, which is actually a circuit. I'll show you that in a second. This night one, this one I love. Yeah, I do actually really like this level, and this is paying homage to some of the best Dreamcast racing games, really, and all the best ones are set at night, aren't they? Tokyo Highway Challenge and NSR and stuff like that. So that's great to see. Now, as I touched on there, JoshProd, no strangers to working on the Dreamcast. They've done plenty of work before, which you can find on sort of Video Games New York. You can find on pixelheart.com, and also Rush On Game. A lot of these games also filter out to Play Asia as well later on, which not often. I don't think the PAL versions often get there. I think it's usually sort of the NTSC style version. But keep in mind this is region free, so we'll play on any Dreamcast that has been made before October 2000, i.e. VA1 motherboard or VA0. VA2, not guaranteed it's going to work. Right, so this here is almost like sort of Donington style racetrack, and I really quite like this. It reminds me of sort of the old F1 games on the Dreamcast. And I'm racing one of the cars which I don't think any of the other sort of YouTubers have touched on yet, so it's the Mini. And there are so many different cars on this game that a lot of people sponsored to have their name put in the game, advertising different companies and stuff like that. And there's even sort of Crazy Taxi for Star Racer on here as well, which is a cool little touch. And it is really just a homage racing game, this, that it's flashing back to yesteryear. What's interesting about this game here is that it started off life obviously on Dreamcast, and there is going to be a Switch and a PS4 beefed up port of it as well coming at some point. So if you don't have a Dreamcast, you could perhaps pick it up on either one of those formats where it will be available physically. Dreamcast version is going to retail for around about sort of €39, so represents good value for money. And it's worth supporting these developers with these sort of interesting games that are coming out. This is yards above anything that's come previously, and you can always rely on JoshProd Pixelheart to come out with these types of games that haven't been tried and tested before. Also, naturally, if you are a developer, you could approach those guys to have your work published as well, if you've got sort of an idea of something to work on in the system. But this is available in July, and it's come on leaps and bounds since the initial Kickstarter. So if you have backed this and you were somewhat skeptical to begin with, then rest assured that with a little more baking in the oven, which it's going to get, it's going to turn out to be an absolutely fantastic racing game. It's playable for 2 players as well, so you can have a bit of head-to-head action should you want to. It's got the career mode, quick race. I think it's got sort of a ghost attack mode as well, where you can sort of try and beat your previous times if you feel the need to. Plenty of cars on offer and decent variation with the tracks. That reminds me of virtual racing there. That's the bit I was talking about with the bridge. I just sort of get shades of that. Probably worth keeping in mind is that if there's any sponsor logos on the side of the tracks here, that they probably will be changed just purely for trademarking purposes. But as I said, this is a beta version of the game. And you can pre-order it now. It's available in a standard and a limited edition version in PAL style NTSC, whatever you prefer. And I'll catch you the next time.